Hi, welcome to another edition of the Omnist Hour. Tone down the music a tad. Back on today because of some thoughts that were stimulated by one of my listeners yesterday. I responded to his question and I thought, well, maybe we could do a whole segment and kind of talk about how this whole game of reincarnation works at multiple levels. So to begin with, I think I need to maybe make it a little bit more clear about how the game of reincarnation differs for low-level souls versus the highest-level souls, the God souls. Okay, under the latest laws of karma and reincarnation, basically, everyone has their own private universe. It's like a private chat room, if you will, where souls can visit you, or you can spend time in, time out dealing with virtual souls. Until you get to the God levels, you're not going to really know that you've got that. So it's like a feature that you don't really get the keys to till you have earned it through reaching the God levels. And even at the God levels, you don't have full access to, full understanding of until you hit the highest level, the senior creator level, the level that puts you on a par with God in terms of what you've achieved in incarnation. And as I mentioned, the latest experiment, the addition of this wonderful law of karma, which is coming to its fruition, means that until you choose to incarnate under the new law, you don't get access to your own separate universe. It may be happening, but you're not aware of it happening. And it's only happening if you are one of the souls that is incarnated within the experiment. Now, how do you incarnate within the experiment? It's kind of interesting. You could be an accidental participant in the new rules and not even know it. Because in the old system of things, everything happened in God's universe, the original physical universe. And good, bad, or indifferent, whatever you did in each incarnation would affect that universe. Now, since this new law has come into effect, you're basically become subject to it as soon as you violate the laws of the universe as they are currently instituted. And so souls are gradually finding themselves sucked to their own separate universe, to the universes of the gods that they happen to worship more than God, happen to have more affinity with some other god. You end up over there instead of in God's universe, and you end up having a stand-in, a virtual soul in God's universe. Now, those virtual souls are kind of interesting because a virtual soul in the universe where it is a virtual soul is bound to operate by the rules of that universe. The rules of that universe are not constant all over. They are a little bit different depending on where you are and what experiments are going on. So if you're a human soul on this planet, with the new law in place, you're affected. If you're not, if you're outside of the Gaia experiment, you may not be affected unless, and this is a tricky part of this whole thing that makes this coming game rather complicated to know who's on whose team. If you have at any time incarnated in the Gaia experiment, even if you died and your soul now is participating elsewhere, you are to some extent tainted by this experiment. You've been sucked into it by affinity to a soul vehicle in this Gaia experiment. And thus there are effectively a lot of stealth souls who have visited this planet, not realizing what was going on and tinkering with God's experiment. And this is like maybe part of God's secret weapon in the whole thing, that nobody really understood well what were the implications of these parallel universes, these virtual souls. And that's what I'm trying to clarify right now. Okay, so if a soul has been replaced by a virtual soul in God's universe, that virtual soul is bound to operate like its original, except when it comes to decisions that affect the divine plan, God's experiment. Now, outside of this planet, this solar system, there's right now not much effect of that. But as soon as these external souls from other planets, from other dimensions, whatever, start impacting the broader experiment as it expands from this kind of isolated center point of this planet, more and more these external entities, spiritual collectives, if you will, that's essentially what any organization is, of souls, is a spiritual collective that operates under a particular set of agreed rules. These collectives are going to eventually be impacted by this experiment as it expands. And some members of these collectives will suddenly start functioning, making decisions, not as if they're part of the collective, but as if they're, bound and determined to do what is needful for the experiment to converge and spread to the rest of God's universe. Okay, so there's going to be interesting things happening, is what I'm telling you. And you're seeing it right now in basically all the whistleblowers coming forward and revealing things that the power collectives of the world didn't want revealed. And it's going, there's been a huge amount of interesting revelation coming out since the pandemic started, and it's accelerating. And this will continue to accelerate either through the active intervention of souls that just have decided, enough is enough. I've seen what's going on here. I'm been playing some part in it and keeping my mouth shut because I didn't want to lose my income, didn't want to lose the respect of the world, didn't want to perhaps open myself to retaliation, even murder. Souls are gradually saying enough is enough. And when you get to that point, it basically is what's needful right now for this experiment to converge. And it's going to happen. if you're in one of these spots, I can't tell you if you're doing what you're doing because you're a virtual soul or because you're the original. What I can tell you is that the virtual souls that are coming into existence in God's universe are getting an experience of what would God do with their life. And when those virtual souls complete their assignment, they die the death that the original soul would die in this universe. They are going to have the option to reincarnate with all that knowledge and choose a different soul vehicle. Imagine how much you could learn from being a God-guided human for one lifetime. And I think there are people, I've talked to many people who feel like, you know what, I don't feel like I have any choices. It seems like everything that happens in my life just, is by some design, and I feel very fatalistic about this. Well, these people may be, in fact, virtual souls in this universe. And their original is off in some other senior creator's universe or in their own private universe, living out an experiment of incarnation that is just not consistent with the bigger plan that's going on here. And this is maybe a subtle nuance of the whole framework of reincarnation and karma as it applies to soul collectives. And as I told you many times, the human vessel is in itself a soul collective. It's an oversoul. If you're commanding a human soul vessel, you're not one independent soul. You're actually the oversoul of a lot of little souls that are in charge of the various pieces of your body. And this is why we have conflicts within ourselves. This is why you can have a different heart and mind about something. Why your stomach thinks to think for itself, or your sex organs seem to think for themselves and almost work against you. This is the root of disease of all types, physical, mental, etc., is a disconnection, a cognitive dissonance between the oversoul that you are and the undersouls who have chosen you as the leader. And there are oversouls of larger things. Each incarnated soul, at whatever level, is essentially the leader of that level experiment. And the experiment of an individual life, the experiment of a whole species, the experiment of a whole planet. And there are many levels at which a soul can incarnate as an oversoul. Now, most human incarnated souls have not experienced these higher order incarnations. But this is very much the way that incarnation looks to the old souls who are basically active participants in the Gaia experiment. The old gods, the new gods, the souls that have reached a higher level of consciousness have had access to more soul vehicles than the average human incarnated soul. And to give you a case in point, God himself has been able to incarnate in whatever form he wanted, and in fact can incarnate as any of the virtual souls which are around doing what he would do. And so God can actually incarnate in any of these virtual souls and adjust the plan. It gives God quite a few levers that his children weren't aware that he had in this whole thing. And kind of explains, well, let's talk about, well, how did we get this mythology that God was asleep during the seventh day? Well, maybe some souls knew that, well, he's not really asleep, but he's incarnating, but he's coming back as different humans and never quite getting to the same level of consciousness, so he doesn't really know he's a god again. That begs the question, what happens between incarnations? Where is God? Where is anybody? Between incarnations, you are experiencing some version of the spiritual world. There are different universes of the spirit. And those universes are basically defined by belief. The belief is a resonance of, there's a certain resonance that Christians have that gives them a sense of belonging, a sense of oneness with each other, if you will. And other belief systems are the same way. There are people whose primary focus is some area of science. And to the extent that those folks are involved in a concerted effort, they may have their own separate heaven that they go to plan their next incarnations. That heaven may seem incredibly connected, like they have access to all the collective knowledge of thousands and thousands and millions of souls, but in fact, that's not the whole experience. There are other heavens, other experiences of the spirit world that they are not aware of. And at the highest level, within the new framework of karma, those who have achieved the highest God level again under karma have earned their wings, as it were, under the new system, have earned their own universe that they can actively work in and plan in. So, there is a part of heaven where the senior creators get together and plan experiments and discuss experiments. And of course, this area is rife with discussion of the Gaia experiment, because that's the talk of the town now, that it's near completion. However, those creators there don't have access to what God knows in God's own separate universe, which is not just the prime universe. That was the original universe set up by God, but that is not his own private universe now. It's the integration universe of all souls. All of the experiments that affect the structure of the multiverse, the laws of the multiverse, must be tested and integrated in that prime universe, which was the original universe that God created. And all of the creators, high and low, have contributed to since. So this prime universe, I sometimes call it God's universe, but it's not really. It's sort of the, call it the prime universe. It's the integration place of the spiritual science experiments of all souls. So to the extent that there is a collective that is every soul, this universe, this integration universe, is effectively the work of all those souls. It's not the sum total of the multiverse. It's only one universe, but it's one that we all share in the creating of. We can share. We don't have to. We can always play in our other private universes. We may be forced to play in those other universes if we're not willing to abide by the rules of integration If you worked at a corporation, for instance, and your corporation was developing a new product, okay, using simulation tools, using a particular virtual machine universe to do those simulations, you could make your own copy of that and run your own simulations and do your own tinkering with it. But you would not be able to, unless you had some pretty good hacking tools or somebody gave you permission, you would not be able to integrate what you did into the simulation that was going to be the net product of that organization. So, if you will, every soul is a creator. Not every soul's creations get integrated and into this prime universe. And if they don't get integrated in this prime universe, other universes can come and go. A parallel universe may crop up because a soul is about to choose to do something that is going to throw a wrench in the prime universe. Bang! This other universe pops into existence. It doesn't necessarily stay in existence for very long. It could be the moment of that thought taking place, and however long the consequences of that thought needing to be maintained in this alternate universe environment to get to a point where that soul could be reintegrated with the prime universe. There's an attraction, if you will, of all souls to want to be creating in the prime universe. That's the whole point of creation. I mean, it's like getting to put your signature on your painting versus storing them up in your attic and nobody ever getting to appreciate them. And that's just natural ambition that any soul would want their needs to be appreciated by others. And even if they're dark and black deeds, at least appreciated by others in some other universe that is run along dark principles. And yes, there are souls that will always be working against God. That's why each soul gets their private universe to create in. And yes, even dark souls can become gods. Dark gods, and their creations are in their own universe. They can knock themselves out with their own version of this game of souls. At some point, though, they are only dealing with virtual souls in their own private universe. And as wonderful as the virtual souls are, they're programmed basically to follow the rules of the owner of that universe. So in a sense, if you're one of these dark gods off running your universe, you're basically managing huge collection of marionettes that are going to be dancing to the tune you set up. Yeah, you can change the tune. You can think, well, okay, I want to change how my universe runs. You can change a few laws, create a new storyline, whatever, just like you can in, if you're a programmer of a virtual reality game. But there's not really much satisfaction in doing that not much reward unless you can attract souls, real souls, to participate. And that's essentially how dark souls participate in creation. They create environments that are inconsistent with the prime universe, that maybe have certain attractions. Maybe they attract souls that are fond of authoritarian government, fond of the idea of cosmic oneness, and we're all one, and we share all our thoughts, we share all our experiences. Okay, you could set up a universe like that, and maybe some souls are attracted to it for a time. In general, though, most souls will eventually want to do something on their own, have their own star on a door, if you will. Not all. I'm sure there will be many souls, and there are many souls, whose roles in life are very pedestrian. And this is as it should be. The multiverse is a huge place. That some parts of creation are best served by providing a stable space for future experiments to be organized. Okay, so if you have, well, I remember in the news here recently, there was talk about this strange void that they had observed that seemed to have dated to early in the history of the observable universe, and speculation about what that void was, how it formed. Well, that void could well be a large collective of souls that just won't want to be bothered. They want to keep things stable, harmonious, conflict-free, and they've organized this large void as a place where they can be happy. Of course, it has a boundary, and what happens at that boundary? There's going to be conflict. At any boundary, there will be conflict. And this is kind of the sad truth that souls are going to have to come to grips with. The only place where you cannot encounter boundaries is in your own universe. And ultimately, that's where you can choose to play. If you're an antisocial soul that doesn't like conflict, doesn't like to be challenged, there's a place for you. It's not a place of creation. It's not a place of progress. And I don't know. To my way of thinking, it's not somewhere I would want to be spending much time. But then, I'm me and you're you, and not all souls are created equal. So, I guess you have to ask yourself, to the extent that you're aware of who you are in this incarnation, which most people never even have the faintest inkling that they've had previous lives. And most human incarnated souls haven't had that many lives, at least not that many human incarnations, as is obvious from the fact that, the population of humans has exploded in the last couple hundred years. And that means there's a lot of holes for souls to occupy who have not had a lot of experience with humanity. And many of you aren't liking that experience too much. You don't like to have so many choices. You don't like to be challenged by so many other souls, especially souls of different levels than you, different experience than you, that may have a really good idea how to press your buttons and get you tweaked up and torqued up and twisted around so you don't know which is up or down. And yeah, that's going to happen to young souls. And if you don't like that, okay, you're going to die, in a few years, and just don't choose it again. This is not a soul vehicle that's designed for tranquility. Not a soul vehicle that's designed for, quote, nirvana. If that is your bent, if that is your desire to live in perfect harmony with a collective of souls, all thinking as one, acting as one, kumbaya, there's a universe for you, but it's not here. Anyway, yeah, so getting back to the mechanics of reincarnation. If you're a human incarnated soul and you feel the pull of wanting some higher mission, knowing that, I don't think I'm here to eke out a meager existence working 9 to 5 at whatever company you work for, or slinging burgers, or whatever you happen to be doing for your life, and you feel like you need to, there must be a higher calling for you, which kind of ties back to the question that one of my listeners was asking. If you have a mission, you'll know it. If you've got a purpose, you'll feel it. And it could be anything. I mean, passions are a very individual thing for souls. When you've got a soulful passion, you're going to know it. And it won't just be about, well, I'm good at this and I can make a lot of money at it. It'll be, this is something that somehow makes me happy, makes me feel fulfilled. It could be a relationship. And, certainly a very worthy goal for young souls, first time in a human form, is to satisfying relationship with a significant other or with children. Incredible amount you can learn from that. Also an incredible amount you can learn from having dysfunctional relationships. And many souls come to experience just that. Because in point of fact, you really can't have truly deep, successful relationships unless you've experienced the boundaries that must be observed in order to have such relationships. There is no collective of souls working together on a common mission that does not have conflict, that does not have to make compromises, that does not have to respect boundaries if that collective is going to stay together. And those boundaries can be fairly extreme. In the case of, the collective that Buddhists describe as nirvana, that's incredibly extreme. It's basically a collective where you have to give up the very essence of your ego, the very essence of what makes you you. Now, that may be a desirable thing for some, but that's, to me, the ultimate spiritual communism. And a slap in the face of everything the creator and the senior creators around him have done, have given you, to even give you the ability to have the idea of nirvana and to create it if you want to in your own universe. Well, that's a nice gift. You should appreciate that and try not to make an ass of yourself around people who don't want any part of your perfection. I can promise you that no matter what human created religion or belief system you are espousing, if you think you're going to be able to impose it on others and work your will on all of humanity or all of this planet, you are basically stepping on the rights of other souls or enabling others to step on their rights. And that's going to get you banished quickly from the prime universe. That's going to get you banished to a universe that either is very lonely or has so much cloying oneness that it's going to seem lonely because your thoughts are still going to be free. Even if they're shared with others, they're going to be sensing some sort of disconnect with their perfection from each of you. And this is in essence what we see going on right now, that, there is a huge amount of disconnection, of cognitive dissonance with this perfect world that our power elite want us to have, either because they have visions of a technocratic corporate world where, the rich and powerful dictate everything to everybody else because they know so much better. They're so much better educated, and they have such a wide view of problems that they can tell everybody else what to do, or because they're part of the international communist movement and have soaked up the absurd lies of Marxism. And yes, those are lies. They are based on complete and utter lack of appreciation of the nature of the human soul, because the human behaviors, the ego, the identity of a human is its soul. You can't take away that identity without tearing apart that soul. And cognitive dissonance will mount and mount within souls the more you take away any sense of identity they have, or try to fill it with a new identity that is not fulfilling. And that's the essence of all these identity politics echo chambers that they're trying to put people into, trying to make you think that you belong in this hive mind, groupthink, pop, politically correct bubble. But I can tell you for absolute certain that eventually that bubble will be burst for all of you, as what you need, want out of life, out of this incarnation, gets in the way of what they tell you you should want or need or have. It's inevitable. And it's happening right before your eyes. And you can hide your head in the ground and say, oh, it's just a few extremists. They're just a bunch of numbnut conspiracy theorists that need to be put down by my government because my government is so wonderful and my media that I watch is so right, and I know everything, and I'm just going to go, I'm sorry, you're stupid. You are a useful idiot to this ideology you become sucked into. And eventually they are going to eat you. If you want to see it happening right now, you only have to look at the reality on the ground in China, which is, at least from this dimension of creating a soulless system of government, is maybe 10, 20 years ahead of the West. But we're catching up fast. And I can tell you that souls are falling apart. You don't hear about it. You don't hear about the folks going absolutely bonkers, jumping off buildings, lighting themselves on fire, going out and stabbing kids. It's not a great place. And if you think the bullcrap that you're seeing on the boob tube throughout this Olympic charade is the real China, you are just absolutely among the stupidest, most brainwashed people on this planet. Sorry, this is the truth. This is what you are being fed. Everything you get from corporate media, all corporate media, is paid for. When you pay for content, you don't buy content just because you want to be nice. You're not going to give the whole world a lifetime supply of toilet paper. That's not how humanity works. If you think there's anybody that altruistic in what they're doing in the power world, you're nuts. You are absolutely nuts. There is nothing more true than the adage, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's exactly why the first creator, God, is not an all-powerful, almighty micromanager of the universe. If he had, the universe wouldn't have worked. Creation would never have happened. All of the souls that God created and lorded over would be in constant battle and conflict with him and never agreeing on anything. And as I've told you, the only way anything happens in the spiritual world is by agreement, by combining energies behind a plan. This takes persuasion. This takes convincing. If you're going to do it over and over and over again to make better and better rules, more and more perfect creations, you damn sure better have a lot of influence. Real influence that comes from trust. Influence that's not based upon trust will evaporate in a second. And if you think anybody trusts their government as much as some of you do, trusts the government of China as much as you do, trusts the government of global mega corporations as much as you do, you are going to be very unpleasantly surprised. Because trust is one of the most difficult to come by commodities in the world today. And it's evaporating by the hour. Trust in government, international, corporate entities is eroding. And rightfully so, because they have not earned our trust. They don't deserve our trust. What global mega corporations and big governments have done to politicize and profiteer from this pandemic is criminal. These souls have committed crimes against the laws of the multiverse, and they're going to be punished for it. That's karma. Is it going to happen today, tomorrow? Maybe not. But eventually it will. And the ultimate punishment is banishment. If you're banished from the creative universe, nothing you do is going to matter. And I can't think of a more sad place for a soul to be than espousing this postmodernist idea of, well, nothing really matters. It may make a nice Bohemian Rhapsody line, but let me tell you that if nothing really matters to you, that's essentially when your soul is dead. If you think that nothing matters, if you think that nothing you do is going to make a difference, yes, it could be the case that that will eventually be true, but I wouldn't want to be the soul in that position for eternity. Playing around in my own private universe, masturbating away my fantasies, and not playing with any real souls, just having all my toys around me. Is that really where anybody wants to be? And that's why I keep trying to warn folks. It's your choice. You can do what you want, and there's a place for everybody in the multiverse. And to some extent, this is going to serve a purpose of creating weight, creating space that allows creation to expand, that allows creation to have boundaries, to have buffer zones. And so, I appreciate that some souls are making those choices. I just don't think that you're necessarily aware of how much you're giving up by abdicating your creativity, abdicating your thoughts, your free thought to others in the name of love and peace and harmony. Think very carefully before you do that, because eventually you're going to get to a point of no return, and it could take, I don't know, like a million lifetimes to get back on the track of a creator soul, as opposed to an occupier soul, a preserver soul. They all serve a purpose, but I can tell you that only the creators are really essential. That's what creation is all about. That's why creation exists. If you want to be a filler, a buffer zone, a protector, a preserver, that's all well and good. Anybody can do that. Any soul can fill those spots. So all you have to do is be willing to abdicate your existence to whatever oversoul you've chosen to be part of a collective of, and make all your decisions for you. Anyway, I'm trying to think what else I might want to get into on this one. I've rambled a little bit, I'm sorry, but I hope you found it useful. Again, it brings up new questions, new ideas, new thoughts. I'm absolutely open to answering and discussing. And if you happen to bring me a new idea that I haven't integrated into my understanding of the multiverse, I will be eternally grateful to you. Constantly seeking out new information and trying to find new ways to integrate it, to make sense of things in the context of what I know already. And if you've been following me for any length of time, I think you've noticed that there have been quite a few subtle changes in the message I'm giving you, and I hope those are appreciated. I think anybody who has been completely consistent in their message over a long period of time, maybe has become a little bit too dogmatic. I think there's no subject in the world that is as simple and straightforward as anybody says it is, and I don't propose that mine is either. It fits the available data to my satisfaction, and that's why it feels true to me. The moment that it doesn't fit is the moment that I'll be looking for an amendment to the truth, not throwing it all out, which some are inclined to do when they become disenchanted with their current religion, their current belief system, their current political party, their current job, but amending it and learning from it and setting a new trajectory based upon a course correction. Now, that doesn't describe what all people do. Some people make 180-degree course corrections in their life and go down a completely different place. That's fine if you want to. From a societal standpoint, that's kind of stupid to, basically throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I hope that humanity doesn't do that. Doesn't keep effectively the latest version of cultural Marxism as it's defined by the beautiful people that tell us what to think in the media and censor what we shouldn't think in big tech, in social media, in the financial system. These folks that are trying to rein in humanity are committing some big, big crimes against the laws of the multiverse. I cannot stress that enough. And if you are an accessory to these crimes, you are going to get sucked down the same dirty rat hole of a universe that they are. And you're not going to get out of it by saying, "Hail Jesus, forgive me." That's not how it works. Karma is a system of earning forgiveness, of earning your place in the multiverse. Be it a good place or a bad place, you can know that wherever you end up, it will have been earned, richly merited. So, I guess in closing, if I have any listeners who are among those who are actively saying no, not complying with authoritarians in whatever country of the world that you're not complying, my hat goes off to you, and what you are doing is entirely consistent with the good way of using karma. You are building good karma by doing what you're doing, as long as you're doing it non-violently, as long as you're not falling into a different authoritarian trap, which is essentially what is true of all of the Marxist movement. The international communist movement is a charade. It's designed to get young, stupid people engaged in trying to destroy their own government without any idea what they're going to replace it with except a one-party authoritarian regime that values that party's identity, communism, more than any other human value. And call it globalism, it's the same thing. If you have the mindset that what we want for everyone is more important than what anyone wants for themselves. This is the thought of not a God. This is the thought of an anti-God. A God who wants to not exist, or at least not exist within the shared universe of creation. Okay? These are bad children that don't play well with others. And if you're going to join these bad children, I guarantee you're going to end up sometime in a lonely universe of your own, playing with a bunch of virtual souls that are tasked with trying to knock you out of your doldrum of thinking authoritarianly, thinking like you know more than everybody else and ought to be able to dictate the terms of everything to everyone else. God's not a dictator. No God worth their salt that anybody wants to play with in heaven is a dictator. If that's what you worship, you're worshiping a dark God. You're worshiping a failed God, and also ran in creation. Why would anyone do that? So just don't be stupid. Start thinking for yourself. Start talking to your neighbors about things that are bugging you that just don't seem to connect. And don't just accept whatever story you're given by streaming media, social media, anything that you see that somebody's paid for you to see is propaganda. Every single new mini-series that everybody froths at the mouth over, Game of Thrones, The West Wing, blah, 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 they are all propaganda. Primarily propaganda. And if you don't think so, all you have to do is start looking at some of the very popular movies and TV shows of 20, 30, 40 years ago, and look at how the propaganda has changed. It's all propaganda. It always has been. Every book you read has a propaganda element to it. It has the personal stamp of the author's mindset, of their ideology. And if you want to make that yours, fine, but do it consciously. Do it thoughtfully. Don't believe something just because you read it in a book. Even if that book is the one you think is the gospel. At least learn enough to find out where that book originated. Whether you're reading the latest version, whether you're reading a literal translation or somebody's politicized translation. Don't reject out of hand everything that you have been told by anybody else. Integrate it. Make sense of it. Keep what makes coherent, logical sense and throw out what doesn't, or replace it with something else that does. This is the essence of what I call omnism. And I don't know, you want to call it a religion, call it a religion. It's more of a philosophy of thinking than anything else. And a philosophy of thinking that makes logical sense because it is based on the logic of integration of knowledge, integration of truth. There is truth out there. It's sometimes hard to come by, and it's sometimes easier to live in a half-truth or a partial truth. Just like most of the world makes fairly good sense just under Newtonian mechanics without introducing quantum mechanics or relativity. That doesn't make it the truth. It makes it a useful approximation to the truth. And that's essentially what I'm telling you is omnism, is successive approximation to a truth that helps you live your life true to yourself, true to your soul. Whatever your soul happens to be gravitating toward, which is a very individual thing. If your soul gravitates towards being completely alone in the world, being in your own reality bubble of your own truth, fine. You'll get there eventually. Play with you. And under the new law of karma, nobody has to play with you. But I think most people, most souls desire companionship of other souls, desire feedback from other souls, want to be part of some kind of a collective, not as a non-voting member, but as a full member of that collective, contributing to it, actively helping define what that collective's values are. And to the extent that any collective doesn't let their participants shape that collective, whether it's a nation, whether it's a political party, whether it's a corporation, if it dictates what that collective is about, that collective has violated the principles of the multiverse, self-organizing principles of the multiverse, and it will collapse eventually. Dictatorships collapse. Authoritarian regimes collapse. Authoritarian companies eventually dissolve because they can't keep up with companies that have a better design. And I'm telling you without a doubt that top-down design, top-down organizations don't work in the physical world or the spiritual world. They've been tried. They don't work because they don't allow participation. They don't respect free thought, free speech. Once you lose respect for those two things, you are working in direct controversy with the laws of the multiverse, the well-tested laws of the multiverse. You can push against these laws all you want, and you may have some localized success, but I guarantee you will not be successful. Whatever your vision of an authoritarian government of the world, government of the universe, government of all creation, whatever your conception is that's based upon an almighty power, an almighty dictatorship is wrong, dead wrong. Ooh, he's a heretic. Ooh, horrible anti-Christian guy, anti-whatever. I'm sorry. This is the truth. And it's not my hubris saying that. You can look at the problem any which way you want, from the framework of human history, from the history of religion, and you can see that I'm right. If you want to structure your life based on a foundation of lies, go for it. you're not going to get anywhere, and you're not going to impress anybody for very long. And let me tell you that the ways that people impress others in one incarnation, the rich and powerful who make a multi-billion-dollar company out of nothing in one lifetime, those are not impressive souls on the other side. Those are souls that get looked at and they get shown. Their life review is going to be quite painful because they're going to see all the stupid anti-multiverse law things that they did that they're going to have to live with on their conscience for a long time. All the other souls they stepped on, all of the fundamental laws they violated in getting to where they were are going to come back to haunt them. And let me tell you, there's a saying, you can't take it with you. Well, you will take karma with you. Negative karma is going to haunt you, and you're not going to just go to some namby-pamby practitioner and clear your karma. Oh, you can clear it with these crystals. Oh, you can clear it by doing this special meditation. Bullshit. Anybody who tells you that is a bullshit artist. They may have some limited success in making you feel better right now. I can tell you that that's all still going to be there when you die and go through your real life review and you plan your next life. Karma doesn't just go away. Nothing about our soul just goes away. We forget past lives. We forget past traumas during incarnation, but it's all going to be there when you spend some time in heaven next, whichever heaven that you happen to go to. And you're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to process it. You're going to have to heal. And shared karma is going to have to be healed as a group. We have species karma. We have organizational karma. We have family karma. Every collective that we become part of in our soul's history ties us to a collective karma of some sort. There's a karma of Christianity, of having accepted that belief system that makes you responsible for at least a portion of the negative karmic energy that has attached itself to that religion. And you can say, well, I don't like that. I'm not going to be Christian. No. You have been Christian before. Even if you choose to be something else later, you still have the karmic responsibility of your time as a Christian. I've spent portions of my life all over the religious spectrum. Different branches of Christianity, agnostic, atheist, and now this Omnist person I am. And I carry karmic burden from all those associations, from all the organizations I've been part of, all of the identities I've held. You can't just choose a new identity and suddenly become a different person. This is insane. And I don't know. If you want to believe people that are telling you this crap, fine. Just when you get to heaven and you go through your life review and you realize what a stupid putz you've been, think back. If you've seen folks like me, like good realist philosophers like Jordan Peterson, some of the real good independent news that tries to stay away from building a rigid identity around what they say, what they report or how they report it, think back and give those souls some credit for having been quite a bit smarter, quite a bit more savvy than you gave them credit for. And that will be essentially part of your karma. Part of the healing process is admitting what a jerk you were, how stupid you were, how narrow-minded you were. Anyway, I think that's about enough for this segment. I hope you enjoyed it. And like, share, subscribe, interact any way you want to. I'll see you next time on the Omnist Hour. Thanks. This is Rob Trump.